Archaeologists can tell a lot about past environments by studying the plants which thrived there. When people began farming, this adds a new layer of complexity to the relationship between people and their environment. The different ways in which we treat plants and their remains leave very particular residues in the archaeological record. Botanical remains survive best in waterlogged environments, and this soil can be processed through a series of sieves and water flotation tanks to release as much of the organic material as possible. The study of these remains can reveal a great deal about past environments, and great care is taken to recover them properly and then study them appropriately, often through a microscope. Microscopic analysis of pollen reveals the range of plants living in the environment in the past. The presence or lack of simple algae cells tells us how favourable conditions were to the growth of plant life. Often people burn plant remains, either on purpose or by accident. This can leave rich, charred layers in archaeology, and sometimes shells and seeds which aren't properly burned are preserved as husks, ripe for studying. Seeds, leaves, and the remains of plants often float on the breeze and come to land in many places, including the surface of lakes. They then sink to the bottom and become encrusted in successive layers of sediment. This can be recovered by archaeologists and used to study the change of the landscape over time. Using an auger, archaeologists can retrieve a core of soil, much like retrieving the core from an apple, and lay out the core in succession like a timeline. This gives archaeologists the opportunity to study the sediments at each point along this timeline, and therefore gain a picture of the landscape as it changed over time. By studying the types and the range of plant life observed in these cores, archaeologists are able to understand the progression of plants and therefore the landscape through hundreds and even thousands of years. For example, we can observe a post-glacial landscape stripped almost clean and bare of plants as it develops into a fully matured beechwood forest. Or maybe it'll take a tangent and people will move into the area, chop down the trees and start farming. Another area where botanical remains have proved invaluable to archaeology has been the study of cranogs, Neolithic houses suspended above water on stilts. The waterlogged mounds which are often left in the wake of these structures have revealed a great deal about the diets of people who lived in them. The remains of hazelnuts have been discovered, along with barley, and also extremely delicious cloudberries, which make wonderful jam. Archaeologists have recovered emmer wheat and spelt wheat, two different types of early cereal being farmed in the Neolithic, and even the weeds recovered tell us how these plants were being picked, low down on the ground and by hand. The presence of flax reveals something of the trade networks and the crafts of these people, and the presence of opiate poppies potentially reveals something about their social lives. Simply by adequately recovering botanical remains, people of the cranogs are being understood in greater detail. Sorghum was one of the first cereals to be cultivated in the Neolithic, and the study of its DNA is revealing extremely interesting things about the way in which the Neolithic spread throughout the world. Archaeologists like Peter Rowley-Conway have been able to extrapolate the spread of agriculture in the early Neolithic from the Middle East up through Europe, simply by studying the DNA of sorghum, found on archaeological sites across the world. In doing this, they have tracked whether people preferred to use only local sorghum when they started farming, or if they were quite happy to let sorghum come in from other parts of the world. This study of the uptake of sorghum hints at the ways in which the idea of farming was transmitted in the early Neolithic.